Welcome into Locked On Knicks. We're putting on our prediction hats today. Probably won't be the first time this summer, but we are going to try to predict out of all the base counting stats for each rotation Knick, what stat will they do better in and which stat will they do worse in this coming season and why. So it's coming up next on Locked On Knicks.
You are Locked On Knicks, your daily New York Knicks podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
All right, welcome in to Locked On Knicks. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. As playoffs wind down, the sports stop sportsing like we want them to, but this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a booster bonus daily. That's right, there's something for everyone every day, all summer long. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. And we want to thank you guys for making Locked On Knicks your first listen today and every day, whether you're checking us out on your favorite podcast platform or taking in sights and sounds on YouTube. We appreciate you making us part of your daily routine. Make sure you hit that auto download function on your favorite podcast app or notification bell on YouTube so you never miss an episode. I'm Alex Wolf. I'm editor-in-chief of Knicks site, The Strickland. You can find The Strick.land. And he's Gavin Shaw, your favorite play-by-play broadcaster's favorite play-by-play broadcaster. And today we've got a question from one of our favorite YouTube viewers. So we put out a solicitation for mailbag questions on YouTube as well, and didn't get too many bites. Keep an eye on that community tab in the future, guys. In case we put something out there. Sometimes, usually when we ask on Twitter, we'll also ask on the YouTube community tab for questions. So, and of course, if anyone still has questions and you want to keep asking them, please give us something to talk about because it's just the slowest of slow times right now. But our buddy Paul Major 3274 on YouTube wants to know, hey guys, hope you're doing well. Appreciate it. Hope you're doing well too, Paul. And Paul wants to know, how about a stat projection per player and for the team as it is right now? Thanks always, Paul. So Gavin, rather than go through and list every player's when I was trying to conceptualize this in my head, I was like, I don't know, do we really want to sit here and just be like, I think Julius Randle will average 20 points per game, 12 rebounds per game, and 5 assists per game. I think it would be a little more interesting to, we know that every single year there's variance in stats and that it's inevitable that guys are going to average more or less in any given category. It's extremely rare, borderline impossible that a guy averages exactly the same in any given category, any given year. And sometimes we see relatively massive movements in certain stat categories depending on context and everything else. So I thought it would be kind of interesting to go through the meat and potatoes of the rotation, maybe a couple of the fringe guys if we have time, but probably not. But just kind of go through and look at their stats from last year and say, what's one I think could be higher and what's one I think could be lower. Of course, like with everything, it begins in many ways ends with Jalen Brunson. He's the beating heart of this team, their alpha superstar. Really impressive counting stats from last year. So this one's going to be a doozy. Probably going to be easier to find something that could go down given the new amount of talent on the team versus something that could go up. But let's go through anyway. So last year, Jalen Brunson averaged 28.7 points per game, 6.7 assists per game, 3.6 rebounds per game, along with 0.9 steals and 0.2 blocks. And then as far as what he shot from the field, he shot 47.9% from the field, 40.1% from three, and shot a pretty robust 84.7% from the free throw line on 6.5 attempts. I guess we could throw that out there too if we want to say maybe someone's going to get a lot more free throw attempts this year or something. But Gavin, what stands out to you as the stat you think will go up for Jalen Brunson?
So I'm kind of cheating a little here, and I had double downs, but I took the intent of what you were asking me as like what's a positive development for him. So I'm going to say his turnovers are down this year instead of going up. His turnovers go down this year as my positive Jalen Brunson one last year. He's at 2.4 per game, which is not a high number, but was a career high for him. I think next year he's going to have the ball in his hands a lot less than he did this year. I think he's going to be at an all-time comfort level, like playing with the full cadre of his former college teammates. I think he gets closer to that 2.1 number he put up his first season in New York. Now, for my negative number, quote unquote, points per game, I don't see him putting up 28.7 points per game. That was kind of fueled by that late season run where everyone was hurt and he started putting up close to 33 post All-Star break. I don't think he's going to have to do that this year. I really hope he's not going to have to do that this year. So that's what goes down for me. But what were your two for him?
Yeah, I pretty much agree with everything you said with the points. I think it's going to be points go down. But I could realistically see his shooting percentages going up because I think life's going to be a lot easier on him. So, but I'm not going to pick that as my thing that goes up because I think I have something that's a little more out there. But yeah, I'll just say if he somehow shot 42, 43% from three this year, would not surprise me because I think things are going to come a lot easier for him. He's going to have a lot more help out there on offense with Bridges and with Randle both out there who have been, albeit in some ways flawed, but number one options on teams previously will now be the number two option behind Jalen Brunson. I mean, that's going to make his life real easy this coming year, which will also probably make it so he has to score less points. I'll say my kind of oddball thing, I think he'll go up in. I think he'll improve on that 0.9 steals per game and average over 1 steal per game for the first time in his career. Maybe 1.2, something like that. I just think if you're out there with a lineup of Mikal Bridges, OG Anunoby, Julius Randle, and Mitchell Robinson, they're going to have hands all over the place. And he's going to luck into, some steals where it's just kind of someone lightly gets a hand on it and then Brunson comes away with it and ends up getting credited to him. But he's good at ball hawking. He's good at playing those passing lanes and keeping an eye on the situation. And that's sort of where he makes up around the margins on defense, is being smart about, picking his spots and, playing the passing lanes and doing that sort of thing. You're going to have way more opportunities to do that if you have your teammates, just playing phenomenal defense on all sides of you and making it so that you can play those passing lanes with uncomfortable, pressured players all over the court, all around you on the other side. So I think he averages 1.2-ish steals per game for the first time in his career. Let's move to Julius Randle, though, for our arguably next most important player. Some may say Mikal Bridges, the guy they just gave up all the picks for, but let's go with the incumbent first. We'll go incumbent, age before beauty, whatever you want to call it. The guy who's been on the team almost the longest of anybody outside of Mitchell Robinson. Julius last year averaged 24 points per game, 9.2 rebounds per game, 5 assists per game, half a steal, 0.3 blocks, 3.5 turnovers. I did forget to say that with Brunson. So good job finding that stat, Gavin. Shot 47.2% from the field overall, 31.1% from three, and 78.1% from the free throw line on 6.6 attempts per game. Gavin, well, I'll let you pick this time. Positive or negative, which way you want to go first with Julius?
Yeah, sure. I will go positive first. I think he shoots the three ball better, right around 31% last year. I think he's just going to get a lot more open ones this year and a lot within the flow of the offense that are good looks. I don't think he shoots that poorly again. The more interesting one for me is I think his at the rim percentage goes down. He was at 68% at the rim last year, which was not by far his best on the Knicks, because it was the exact same number he put up in 22-23, which is what gave me a little bit of pause here that, all right, maybe that's just a jump that he made. But the 3 seasons before that on the Knicks, he was at 60% all 3 seasons. So I could see that being a little bit of a fluke as he turns 29. He's going to be maybe a tad drop off in athleticism. To me, the single biggest thing, though, is that at the rim percentage was quite a bit higher when Isaiah Hartenstein was on the floor than when Mitchell Robinson's on the floor. Now Mitchell Robinson's going to be on the floor most of the time. The caveat here and where this could look bad is if he gets 15 minutes a game playing as a center, then you're going to see that number skyrocket. Because I think him playing as a center, he's going to shoot over 70% at the rim. I just don't think he gets enough minutes there.
As far as my thing that I think goes up, we sort of touched on in our last episode. I'm going to say his assists per game go up, probably to close to 7. I just think that he's going to be entrusted to do a lot more with, sort of trying to fill the void of the Hartenstein passing, from the elbow there out of the short roll potentially, just trying to keep that part of their offense intact, and give Jalen Brunson someone who can, do that for him, that can go out there, take that pick, and then, get the ball and kick it out to the corner or whatever real quick, or just drive inside and finish. Or, I mean, Randall doesn't really have a floater in his bag so much like Hartenstein did, but he could definitely get all the way to the rim and generate free throws or and ones or whatever. I think they're going to look to go to that more this season, or at least I hope so. So maybe it's wishful thinking, but to improve on 5 assists per game, where he was mostly, not being tasked with being a role man at all and didn't get those opportunities. I think if you just add that to the stuff that he already does well with drawing the doubles in the mid range, with the ball in his hands and kicking out to shooters and stuff, he could definitely get like 6.5, 7 assists per game, something like that. And maybe we actually see Brunson's go down a little bit as a result, but that would be fine. It doesn't really matter as long as the ball is moving well and the team is generating a decent number of assists. I think that's good. Gavin, we should move to the new guy, though. We should move to Mikal Bridges, I think, who will be certainly a name worth looking at, and a guy that we didn't get to watch as much of, and maybe it'll be a little harder to predict, but certainly a guy who's going to be really important to this team, and maybe an easy candidate to find some things that'll go down where he doesn't have to be the number one option on a team anymore, or possibly even the number 2. But we'll talk about him in just a moment.
But first, we want to tell you about our good friends over at eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience. The formula for winning championships is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors is everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for with eBay Guaranteed Fit. Your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want. It's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit. Only available to U.S. customers. All right, let's get into Mikal Bridges. So his up, this is one of my favorite ups of the whole thing, and it's one of the ones that I hope happens the most, Alex. It might even be something I incorporate into our Locked On bold predictions when we do our crossover Knicks film school right before the start of the season. I think his blocks go up this year. Last season, he was at 0.4 blocks per game, which was a career low. I am shocked for someone who's a great defender and has the freakish wingspan that he does. He's never averaged a block per game in his career. I might even be so bold as to say he gets to a block this year. I think the way the Knicks will use him at times will be similar to how they used OG Anunoby in the playoffs, where he's kind of a rover from the corner, flying over and help defense, able to swat the ball. I don't think he's ever played with quite a group of defenders like this. Having a Mitchell Robinson at the rim, having an OG Anunoby with him out on the perimeter, going to get minutes, obviously, with DiVincenzo, with Josh Hart. I think the general freneticism, the general ball hawking nature of all the dudes on this team is going to kind of be infectious. And I think he's going to block a bunch of shots this year, at least relative to last year, where he barely did it. As far as the negative side, I think his assists go down. Last season, he was at 3.6, which was tied for career high with the 2022-2023 stretch he had on the Phoenix Suns. Granted, he will be playing with much better teammates in New York, so there's a chance to rack up easier assists. I just think he's going to have the ball in his hands about half as much to a third as much as he did last year. He's going to be used much more as a pure kind of spot-up shooter. Of course, when teams like over-aggressively close out, he'll have a chance to drive that, kick it again, pick up some assists. I just think it's a long shot he gets to quite the same number he had a year ago.
Well, Gavin, I have a lot of questions. First off, how dare you for stealing my my first number? Little office reference there. But yeah, I mean, so the rest, just the overall picture for Bridges last year: 19.6 points, 3.6 assists, 4.5 rebounds, 0.4 blocks, 1 steal even, shot 43.6% from the field, 37.2% from 3, and 81.4% from the free throw line. I think my number that I'm zeroing in on for a positive for him is that field goal percentage. I think that goes up. I don't see any way it doesn't. I mean, this is a guy that when he was playing with Phoenix earlier in his career, especially before he sort of took on a bigger role in that 22 to 23 season, and then ultimately was included as the centerpiece for the Kevin Durant trade, was averaging over 50%, like well over 50%, like 54%. His third year in the league from the field, 53.4% on over 10 shots per game in his fourth year in the league. So I feel like he's going to shoot over 50% again. Which actually represents a huge upgrade over last year when he shot 43.6% from the field. I think that the threes are still going to keep falling at a 37 to 40% rate, like they have pretty much his whole career. But I think the big thing is that everything else is going to get a lot easier. He's not going to have to try to break defenses down as a number one option and get his way to the rim anymore. He'll be able to take advantage of cuts and transition and playing with Josh Hart and Dante DiVincenzo off the bench potentially, all that good stuff. So I think that his field goal percentage is definitely going to be on the ups. As far as things that'll go down, I'm not gonna lie, it's kind of tough to find something that I think is realistically going to go down on his stats because I just think I think overall he's going to just have a really good, efficient year. I guess I'll just say his points per game. I would also say his assists per game, but like 19.6 points per game last year. I think maybe he starts averaging more like what he did prior to the KD trade with Phoenix, around like 17 a game. Doesn't represent a huge drop off, but the Knicks just have so many scoring threats that it's like, it's not a bad thing if they have a bunch of guys that average in the high teens because they have a bunch of guys averaging in the high teens. Like I would not be surprised if most nights they have 5-6 players in double digits because I just think it's going to be a very democratic offense, especially when all those Nova guys are out there, and it's going to make for a really fun time in that regard. But Gavin, to move to another player here, let's go just to the next freaky defensive guy, OG Anunoby, who I was gonna say just his Knicks stats, but let's do his whole stats from last year. Paints a little bit better picture of the entire season. So he played 50 games between Toronto and New York last year. Averaged 14.7 points per game, 4.2 boards, 2.1 assists, 1.4 steals, 0.7 of a block. Although notably, 1.7 and 1.7 steals, 1 block with the Knicks last year once he came over to the Knicks. So those both improved by a pretty wide margin once he came to the Knicks. Shooting percentages wise, shot 48.9% from the field, 38.2% from three, and 75.3% from the free throw line. And then also had 1.6 turnovers per game last year. Gavin, what do you think is going up and down for OG Anunoby this year?
I'm doing some quick changes based on that total stat qualifier. But I have his shots at the rim going up. He was at 3.96 total, but on the Knicks, he was actually at like 4.4. So I think he'll very comfortably maintain that. And I actually had that as my number or thing going up initially, anyways. Just because I think he unlocked something in that Pacers game, like I can't remember if it was game 3 or game 4. I think it was game 4 where he got hurt. But like where he was just cooking them and had like 20 in the first half. It's not that he was getting to the rim over and over again, but just a general aggressiveness that he played with. I think he saw that like he's talented enough to justify bringing that mentality night in and night out. I think that's going to result in more free throws, more bully ball for him. So I'm just expecting more shots at the rim and like continued like real effectiveness when he gets there. And I think that was something Tom Thibodeau from day one when he got to the Knicks was driving home to him. Like you are a big freaking tank. Like watch Julius, like use it. And I think that'll continue. The 3-point percentage, I think will go slightly down, though I'm less confident now that we're doing it as a reflection of his entire season and not just his time on the Knicks, because his number on the Knicks at 39% would have been like just below a career high. His total number of the year, like closer to 38%. Pretty much in line with his career averages. He's going to get better shots than he ever has on the Knicks. So I'm not like totally confident in that. Maybe I'd switch it to his steals going down, but I'm okay sticking with that. I'll say his 3-point percentage drops off just a little bit, mostly due to law of averages. I think he's going to get great shots.
I will say, as far as things that I think will, or a thing that I think for sure will go up. Well, let me give an honorable mention. I think his 4.4 rebounds per game has a great chance of going up if this OG at the 5 thing ends up happening. So I hope so. And, maybe that gets him to more like 5 to 6 rebounds per game, especially because I think that he's going to play a decent amount of 4 no matter what, too. Like, I think there's going to be a lot of times where he stays out there with the bench unit and you bring out like Deuce, Dante, Josh Hart, and then, keep OG out there with Precious. They obviously have good chemistry together, having played together for, Precious' whole career. He's played with OG Anunoby his entire career. So I think just for the comfort level there, they might do that, which results in a little more rebounds for OG. And then I'm going to, the one that maybe is more eyebrow raising, I think even for as lofty as his stock numbers were once he came to the Knicks, I think he does over 2.7. Like over 2.7 total steals and blocks combined. I think he gets over 3, like 3.1, something like that. Again, if he's used more as a rim protector, I think it's reasonable to think he would average 1.5 blocks per game potentially, along with still about 2 steals per game, which would get him over 3 in total. So I think that's my number there. As far as things that will go down, again, tough to say because so many guys, like percentages wise and stuff, it's like maybe they'll go down, but also it feels like if they're healthy, everybody's lives are just going to be so much easier this year. So it kind of just feels like overall scoring numbers and stuff might go down. For OG, I'll just say I think he goes from, so with the Knicks, he had 11.1 field goal attempts per game. Overall, he had 11.5 field goal attempts per game between Toronto and the Knicks. I think that goes down. I think he gets closer to 10 field goal attempts per game. I just think there's only going to be so many shots to go around. And at this point, like, there was rumors earlier in OG's career and even before he came to the Knicks and got traded that he wanted more of an offensive role, and that was part of his frustration with the Raptors. They wanted more chance to prove himself, but presumably that was so that he could get paid, and he just got mega paid. So at this point, it's just, is his competitive fire burning so much that he's like, I still want 15 shot attempts per game, or is it more just like, okay, I'm good now. I got my big payday. Let's just go win games. I don't care how many shots I get. If it's the latter, which I hope it is, then hopefully his shot attempts go down a little bit, focuses a little more just on like spot up 3-point shooting and, cuts to the rim and stuff like that. And that's, what the Knicks zero in on for him. So I think that's where I'm at with him. But then that leaves still a lot of decent depth here. Still, the starting center we haven't even gotten to yet. So Mitchell Robinson, Dante DiVincenzo, Josh Hart, Deuce McBride, and possibly Precious Achiuwa. So got a lot to chew on in the next segment, which we'll get into in just a second. Do some more over-unders. But first, we got to let you guys know about our good friends over at FanDuel Sportsbook. And I love sports. I love them so much. I never want them to stop. But as the playoffs wind down, we get fewer games and sports aren't sportsing like I want them to. Although I'm going to fly in the face of this ad copy and say in the Olympics, sports are sportsing just how I want them to right now. But FanDuel lets me keep the sports going whenever I want. All I have to do is open the app and dream up bets anytime I'm in the mood. And this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a booster bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every day, all summer long. So head over to FanDuel.com and start making the most of your summer. Maybe check out some Olympic odds. One of my favorite overall events is beach volleyball. It's my favorite. Probably I love basketball, obviously, host a basketball podcast and all that stuff. But my favorite sport to tune into every 4 years is the beach volleyball. I find it to be so physically compelling, like just the trials that these people have to put their body through, like to just go through one game. It's just like 50 minutes to like an hour and change of just nonstop action. They like barely take a breath throughout the whole thing. And then just the spikes and everything else. Super cool. So what stands out to me right now, if you are paying attention, a little NBA crossover, Miles Evans and Chase Budinger, who used to play in the NBA, are playing for Team USA, one of their Olympic teams at the moment in beach volleyball, and they're at a plus 2,800 to win the whole thing and win the gold medal right now. I kind of dig that. I don't know. I watched their second game. They got kind of dismantled by the Netherlands, which you don't love to see, because the Netherlands, took advantage of a team that has a little less experience, but like Chase's overall ability, pretty compelling. So I would maybe go place a bet. Plus 2,800 is solid odds for a team that has a very realistic shot of figuring it out and winning the whole thing. So anyway, head over to FanDuel.com and start making the most out of your summer. FanDuel, official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball. All right, Gavin, we're back in to keep talking through the overs and unders and everything in between for these guys appropriate after just talking about FanDuel a second ago. Let's do the last starter that we haven't talked, or at least the last presumed starter, I guess, that we haven't talked about yet. Mitchell Robinson. And this, I feel like, will be an easy one to pick overs. Maybe not so easy to pick unders for Mitch, because it was a sort of a not sort of. It was definitely a down year for him. Like at least as far as counting stats are concerned, saw his role diminish towards the end of the season, and the Knicks obviously would have preferred to have been able to keep Isaiah Hartenstein to keep in front of him in the depth chart. But now Mitch reclaims his role as the starter for this team after losing it partway through last year due to injury. So Mitch, in a somewhat limited sample, thanks to said injuries, 31 games he played, 21 games he started. He averaged 5.6 points per game, 8.5 rebounds per game, which included 4.6 offensive rebounds per game, 1.2 steals, 1.1 blocks, just a half of an assist. And then relatively uncharacteristic for him, shooting the ball, only shot 57.5% from the field, which is definitely low for him, and a robust 40.9% at the free throw line. So what do you think? I think if we want to just take the easy route, we could probably do what we think's going up first.
Yeah, I think you nailed it. I tried to just make it a little specific just to add some interest here, but it's his shooting percentage at the rim. He has hit highs of 77% at the rim. That was just 2 seasons ago. Last season he was all the way down to 58% at the rim. The season before he was 68% at the rim. So I think the safe bet is that he does not continue to drop 10 percentage points at the rim every year. And that number actually goes up, and the Knicks make it a real point to do exactly what I was talking about last episode, which was to use Julius Randle in the short roll. And then, my God, like if those two need to do like just like really basic like target practice all year, like have Mitch hold like a dartboard in his hands for Julius to aim at, like whatever it takes, like put a bullseye there. And he just needs to be hit on some lobs. Mitch has to finish up some lobs. Mitch has to stay really aggressive around the basket. Like sometimes you see him not look to shoot after rebounds because he's scared of getting fouled. Like that can't happen anymore. Like he's not 40. He's like 26 years old. Like he should not be that far past his athletic peak that guy who was setting records for shooting percentage all time is just completely gone. So that is the single biggest thing for Mitchell Robinson. And then maybe not a popular take here, but I'm going to say his offensive rebounding goes down just a tad. Was at 4.6 per game last year, obviously buoyed by an all-time great start in that capacity. I think this comes down to like 2 or 3 things to me. I think the Knicks miss less shots. I think they go from a team that had an elite offense despite not shooting the ball well to a team that has an elite offense because they shoot the ball really well. 2, just have continued to load up on guys who can crash. Like maybe that's not a new thing because they've always had guys who are good offensive rebounders, but like adding in just like another guy with length and size on the wing and Mikal Bridges, like obviously Dante is so good at that. Hart's so good at that. Mitch playing a full season with those guys, you could see it going down slightly. And to me, the most important thing that I actually hope happens is that he's used a little bit differently. He's a tiny bit more on the perimeter, more so setting screens off the ball, and he's not always parked right at the rim to collect every offensive rebound. Maybe the Knicks will lose some possessions here or there, but I think we saw in that Heat series 2 years ago, like just parking Mitch at the rim is not a sustainable strategy against the best teams in the playoffs, and they need to play a little differently. So I hope they do. I hope that number goes down just a little bit.
I'm going to say as far as things that go up, I'm gonna go with your theory that he just can't keep losing percentage points year over year over year, but not in field goal percentage. I'm going to go with free throw percentage. I think finally this is the year. He's talking it up on social media again. I think it was like Snapchat or something or Instagram Live or whatever. He was like, "This is it. I'm training for free throws." Okay, Mitch, please. I hope this.
What have you been doing? What have you been doing every summer?
Yeah,
I mean, supposed to be since the beginning.
No more step back threes. Yeah, no more step back threes.
Stop
no more saucing up
9-year-olds. Just free throws. Damn it.
Yeah, right. Exactly. No more saucing up high schoolers, during the summer. Let's shoot some like 20 million free throws until you make 75% of them in a zero pressure situation. And then we can talk about pressure situations. But I mean, he's shot basically 2 to 2.5 free throw attempts per game for his entire career. And his percentages have gone 60%, 57%, 49%, 49%, 48%, 41%. So let's just get back to 60%. And then that makes him so much more playable. Like 40% is just abysmal. And they're just the misses just keep getting worse too. I mean, I think that's the worst part of it, is that it just seems like every year it's just like the shot gets more of a line drive and is flying off the back rim and whatever. It's not a fun time.
But
So
then,
I
then he
hope
then
this
he
is
nails
finally the year.
the big ones in the playoffs with no explanation at all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is true. He did hit some big ones.
Even 2 years ago against the Cavs, he made big ones too.
Yeah.
He's a weird dude. We can sum it up like
free
that.
throw clutch gene, I guess. But let's just keep it going for the whole year so it doesn't lose regular season games or anything too. And as far as something that'll go down, I struggle to find it, if I'm being completely honest. Once again, I'm gonna go and say maybe steals. I think he goes down from 1.2 steals per game, maybe to just under 1. I think the blocks will go back up just because of the fact that he'll be the high minute rim protector again, or relatively high minute rim protector again. But I think steals go down just because the perimeter defense will be better. I mean, you have Bridges and Anunoby out there. So I think a lot of those steals are going to get generated before things even get down to Mitch this year. So I think he dips down to below 1 steal per game, and it won't be a big deal because it just means that the rest of the defense is functioning better. Let's move to Josh Hart next. So Josh Hart this past year, 9.4 points, 8.3 rebounds, 4.1 assists, 0.9 steals, 0.3 blocks, 1.5 turnovers. Then shot 43.4% from the field, 31% from 3, and 79.1% from the free throw line. Gavin, once again, your choice, up or down. Where are we going with Josh Hart to start?
Oh, good question. I'm just going to see which one I wrote down first here. I'm going to start with up. I'm going to start positive with my guy Josh. And this is one where he has a shocking amount of room to grow, and that is his efficiency as a scorer. The stat I use to represent that would be points per shot attempt, which is a weird stat that Cleaning the Glass. It's their version of kind of catch-all efficiency stat, which is basically what is the total number of points you score per 100 shot attempts that include field goal attempts or trips to the line, including when fouled on the inbound or fouled when you're in the bonus. All right. So before this year, Alex, he had never had a season under the 43rd percentile in the NBA in this category. The last 4 seasons before this one, I guess they're splitting not the last, I guess it was the last 2 seasons, but different teams. So in 41 games on New Orleans, he was 83rd percentile. 13 games on the Pelicans in 21-22, he was 97th percentile. 51 games on the Trailblazers in 22-23, he was 67th percentile. And then 22-23 in 25 games on the Knicks, he was 98th percentile in this stat. What do you think his percentile was compared to the rest of the league last season in that stat?
Man, split the diff. I don't know. That's kind of all over the place. So I will just wait to be surprised.
Okay, so let's just say we took it and split the diff between the 67 and the 98. That would be like somewhere like 81 or 82 or something.
Sure.
He was the 19th percentile last year in points per shot attempt, which I'm stunned that it was that low. The 2-point percentage was one of the lowest marks of his career. And I think he got dinged for, again, just having to play a really big role on a really good team. And he just had nights where he was not that efficient and he would shoot like 6 for 17 and would say, you know what, that was the best 6 for 17 game I've ever seen. I'm going to say he doesn't have to do that as often this year. Hopefully you don't have a major traumatic injury again. Even if you do, you have Mikal Bridges to pick up some of that slack because he, knock on every piece of wood you own, generally does not get hurt. So I'm going to say that number goes up. It was at 104.9. On the Knicks the year before, it was 138.9. I think it's somewhere in the middle of those two this season. As far as what goes down for Josh Hart, I'm going to say his rebounds. It was at 8.3 last year, which was a career high for a full season, I believe, for him. I have to double check that real quick. But yeah, I'm pretty sure that was a career high for that was a career high for a full season for Josh Hart. I'm going to say that's tough to match because he's not going to play 33 minutes a game. And it's pretty much that simple. He's a great rebounder, but I don't think he's going to be asked to get over 8 rebounds a game again.
I think the 3-point percentage goes up from 31%. I'm going pure vibes only, rolling with what happened in the playoffs, the fact that he stepped up there. just banking on some stuff rolling over and the fact that maybe his confidence has been restored in his 3-point shot. He even alluded himself that some of that had just kind of left him, and that it's really hard to get that back, that confidence in your 3-point shot. Hopefully that's come back and he shoots closer to like 35%. I think that would be more than good enough. And then as far as something that'll go down, I'll just say his points per game. It's pretty simple, like 9.4 points per game. I don't know that he'll be relied on to do as much. Sort of a similar thing for what you said about the rebounds. Like, I don't think he's going to be required to score as much. I could maybe see his assists going up actually, because I think he's going to be kind of running that bench unit a little bit, and being sort of the focal point of that sometimes with Deuce McBride and with Dante DiVincenzo. So I think that's where I'm at there. Which, speaking of Dante DiVincenzo, let's just breeze through him and Deuce McBride real quick before we sign off for today. So Dante last year, banner year across the board for him, career year all across the board, and yet somehow not eligible for most improved player, one of the great travesties of recent Knicks history, thanks to those stupid new minimum games played rules or whatever that care if you played certain amount of minutes for a most improved award, which is just asinine. But so he averaged 15.5 points per game, 3.7 boards, 2.7 assists, 1.3 steals, 0.4 blocks, 1.4 turnovers, and then shot, this is where things get real good, 44.3% from the field, 40.1% from three on 8.7 attempts, and 75.4% from the free throw line on not quite as many attempts, 1.4. Gavin, what do you think goes up and down for Dante?
For Mr. DiVincenzo, I'm going to say the 3-point attempts go down. I just don't think he's going to play as many minutes this year. To me, that is kind of my single biggest rotation concern coming into this season, that Tom Thibodeau ensures that Dante is playing at least 28 minutes a game. I'd love to find a way to get him to 30 minutes a game, because he's proven himself to be one of the most deadly 3-point shooters on planet Earth. Like, obviously last year, like, to his credit, his confidence never really fluctuated, even when his minutes were like, he was kind of being jerked around in terms of how much he was playing early in the years. The Knicks were desperately trying to get Quentin Grimes going, something that I agreed with in the time. So it's not a critique. It's just what was happening. But I think he's going to play less minutes this year. I can't see him getting up 8 threes a game. Again, I just think that number is too high. I'm going to say, though, his free throw accuracy and attempts both go up this season for Dante DiVincenzo. They were not like crazy high in either capacity last year. In fact, I think over the last 4 seasons, it was a low for Dante in terms of his free throw accuracy. The years before it was 85, 84, 82 last year, all the way down to 75. I'm going to say that bounces back up. Last year, he took just 1.4 free throws a game. He's never really gotten to the free throw line a lot. But again, I think that's going to be a real emphasis for him, attacking the basket. I think he's just going to get the ball with defenses at this point, really respecting him and just kind of desperately, wildly closing out. He's going to blow right by them, get all the way to the rim, get hacked, get to the line at least once a game, which would be enough to improve on that 1.4. But what do you think for Dante?
Yeah, I'm going to go a similar direction with the general thought process as far as what goes up. Like, I would say his free throw attempts probably go up too. I also think his rim attempts go up. Just he'll be, I feel like, more empowered to cut when he's playing with the bench unit more. So I think there's going to be more like backdoor cuts where, Hart starts the motion and then Dante breaks free along the back door and gets cut there, or Deuce McBride, or, whatever. Like, if there's one thing we know about that bench unit and the guys that he's going to be sharing the floor with more now, presumably coming off the bench, it's that they like to cut a lot. And that's going to be, I think, a big part of their identity, is just lots of cutting and then kicking back out to shooters and stuff, especially if they're running Deuce McBride as sort of the primary ball handler and need to create a system, more of a movement system with that bench unit, which, again, because of the depth, they should be able to do, because then guys don't get tired as easily. You're not having guys play 48 minutes a game. You're having them play like a really, really tough 22 minutes a game or whatever, where they're just going to be running the entire time, and all that stuff. As far as what goes down, take your pick. Unfortunately, I think everything goes down for him this year as far as the counting stats are concerned. Not the percentages, though. So I don't think the percentages go down. Maybe weirdly, he actually shoots better from three and gets like 41, 42%, something like that, instead of 40.1, but definitely less attempts, and it's going to be less relied on to be, sort of the fulcrum or one of the fulcrums of the offense. And instead, it's just going to be a really, really, really good role player where you get the luxury of taking one of the top 3-point shooters in the NBA as a whole last season and putting him on your bench, which is great. A guy that was right behind Steph Curry and Luka Doncic, and threes attempted and made for the umpteenth time to stress that point. That's crazy. So then last guy I think I would feel the need to highlight here, Gavin, would be Deuce McBride. Interesting stat line for Deuce McBride, given where his role went up and down last year. There was some social media posturing and stuff about that from him and from some people in his family or whatever, from what I remember correctly. But so his stuff is all over the place. So I ended the season on 8.3 points, 1.5 rebounds, 1.7 assists, 0.7 steals, 0.1 blocks, and 0.4 turnovers per game. Then averaged 45.2% from the field, 41% from three, which we saw translate nicely to the playoffs as well, and 86% from the free throw line, albeit on limited attempts. For one last time, Gavin, what's going up? What's going down?
Yeah, this is an easy one. I think pretty much everything is going down from. I think the minutes are down. I think the points are down. The thing I'm most sure is going to go down though is probably his 3-point percentage. First 2 years in the league, 25%, 30%, and then last year goes all the way up to 41%. We call that a screaming statistical outlier here on Locked On Knicks, and that is not to say that he's not an awesome shooter, because I think I think he's a bona fide great shooter. We saw in the G League where he actually was able to like put up shots on volume. That being said, I think 41% is a little rich for my blood. I have a feeling he ends up being more like a career 38, 39, 37 and a half 3-point shooter, which, you know what, if he's getting them up, that is a fantastic number. I just think 41 is a little high. As far as what goes up, I'm struggling here a little bit, tempted to say steals, but I'm going to say assists, even though he was at 1.7, which is a pretty impressive number last year. That was in 19.5 minutes per game. I currently only have him playing like 12 minutes a game next year. I could see that number getting up to 14 or 15. So now I'm going to change it. I'm going to say assists per 36 minutes go up. So even if that total number doesn't go up, I'm going to say the assists he gets when he's on the floor goes up, because I bet he spent all of this offseason working on his point guard skills when last year he was preparing to play off the ball with Emmanuel quickly. So to me, that is the area I think he's going to be most improved.
Yeah, I'm going to go assists as well. And I'll just straight out say, I think he could do 2 a game. You know, if he gets about 15 minutes per game, and that's just provided that the Knicks provide him the opportunity, which, you know, a Tyler Kolek or a campaign can come in and, you know, screw that all up real fast. So maybe that's a poor prediction, but I think he could do it. I think he can get 2 assists per game. So that's what I will pick for his number that goes up. Although I do think that most other hard numbers will go down, because I think that he's just going to play less minutes. He's not going to play 20 minutes a game. I think it'll be closer. I would say more close to like 15 minutes per game, but, you know, kind of picking nits there between the two of us. Then as far as something that goes down, I'm going to say, man, I hate to go completely lockstep to end the show, but I think 3-point percentage goes down just a little bit too. But, you know, I'll just say 3-point attempts, which means less opportunity to get in rhythm. And you know, we saw that Deuce did better from 3 once he was able to kind of find that rhythm last year with more playing time. So yeah, I'll just say the attempts go down, but I also think that that results in the percentage going down a little bit, but not too much, probably just dipping under 40%. But yeah, I think that's it. We would maybe get into some other players, but you know, we're kind of scraping the bottom of the barrel here, and we've been going on for a while. So save some stuff for another day. We certainly have a long off season ahead of us. But thanks, Paul from YouTube, for the question. Again, I say this all the time, but if you ever have anything you want to hear us talk about, just drop it in YouTube comments, send it to us on Twitter, whatever. We would love, even if we don't have an active mailbag solicitation out, if you've got something you're curious about, we're happy to address it on the show. Because right now it's the slow part of the season, and slow part of the off season, I should say. So yeah, we'll talk to you soon and have much more great content for you guys next week. Till then, thank you all for listening, and we'll talk to you soon. Peace out, everybody.